Welcome to Hashtag with Nakabuye. This is a place where we help you unravel social constructs, discuss self-development in line with mental health, emotional well-being, and everything in between that directly or indirectly affects us in the millennial world around us. If you're hearing my voice for the first time and are the kind of person who is not scared of being a better version of yourself even if it requires you to contradict who you were 24 hours ago, consider this your virtual home. I'm your host, Nakabuye, and I cannot wait to engage with you in the various conversations. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 85 of Hashtag with Nakabuye. This Wednesday, I'm in conversation with Lorna Nakabuye. She is a mental health therapist and the proprietor of Kampala Counseling Services, a private outpatient mental health clinic. Having started her practice in the US, Lorna in this conversation shares the subtle differences in the way US and Uganda handle mental health. She also emphasizes the mental needs of primary caregivers and further leaves us a guide on where to seek mental health professional help. If anything resonates with you during our conversation, share with us on social media with the hashtag HTNKInsation. Here's our episode. Hi, Lorna.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I had to first be sure. I'm one of those people who don't just say I'm okay. I have to be like, am I?
Check yourself.
Yeah. Is my respiratory system fine? Am I? Yeah, I'm those persons. You're going to ask me how I am. I'm like, hey, I last went to the toilet yesterday. I think I have a problem.
Oh, I don't know who has enough time to listen to us.
That is why I really find it uncomfortable when random people come to my inbox asking, how are you? I feel like that is a personal question. I can't tell you that I didn't poop yesterday.
Yeah, I think actually most people ask that just to get the basic answer of like, I'm fine.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but
they don't really ask to
that.
really find out how you are.
Yeah. Someone
like,
asked me, how are you?
Sit down and like, let me tell you how I really am. You have time? Yeah. That's the thing.
So how are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. You know, I'd say I'm okay.
You'd say.
Yeah.
I'm very sure.
I'm okay.
It's not convincing.
It's Saturday and there's nothing much going on. No complaints really. So
Yeah.
I'm okay.
All right.
Yeah.
It's important for us to know.
Yeah.
So welcome to Hashtag with Nakabuye.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah.
For the person that does not know who Lorna is, who are you?
Yeah, who am I? Whew, that's a big one. Lorna Nakabuye, Bazalira. Just added that. That's added on that. Who am I? So professionally, I'm a mental health therapist. I started Kampala Counseling Services. So, and we'll probably go in there later on at the end of this. But yes, I am a mental health therapist. What I've learned in Uganda, most people call it like psychologist. So, but I feel like I don't qualify to call myself a psychologist.
Is it?
Because yes, I have an undergrad degree in psychology, but then I have a master's degree in clinical social work.
Oh, wow.
So it's two different, not very different fields, but like two different schools. That makes sense. So, and then, going to school in the US, a psychologist, someone to be called a psychologist, you have to do tests and get your license and be, licensed clinical psychologist. And then for social work, you also have to do different tests to call yourself, a licensed clinical social worker or like a licensed graduate social worker.
Right.
So that's why I just I'm like, yes, I fall into both schools, but yeah. So I call I'm just okay, I'll just say mental health therapist because that's what I do. But, usually I've also found that I'm just going to go with the flow in Uganda and just psychologist. Yeah, sure.
Look at yourself.
I'll take that.
You've mentioned something very important, and I thought about it before. As far as the licenses are concerned, for the people that I've noticed or listened to if they aren't Ugandan, especially the US that you mentioned,
I've noticed they find it really important to go as far as I'm a licensed psychologist. And I was actually thinking about it and I was like, do we have that here?
Good question.
Like, do we have that here?
I don't know about licensing. No. Actually, no. At least the people I've met, I don't think they really, like, not people in Uganda, like, who are practicing in the field, like, counselors, therapists. I did not hear much about licensing. I think that's why the field is very flooded with people that are just like, oh yeah, I'm a counselor. I love talking to people and I guess I'm a counselor then. And it's like, yeah, but people go to school for this. Like you have to have some skills and training to qualify as a counselor.
Right.
So I think the word is just thrown around a lot. So that's why I like to stay away from counselor as a title. I usually just go, mental health therapist. But you know what? I think I should add license to it because I am licensed. So why not take it up? I did my exam and got my license. So I should add that, licensed clinical social worker or like...
Please reintroduce yourself.
Yes, there we go. Let's go. So, take 2. I am Lorna Nakabuye Bazalira. I am a licensed mental health therapist.
That's right.
Yeah, there we go.
How did you end up in the space of mental health? Is it something that you found important right from an underage kind of system?
Well, okay. So ever since I was a kid, I think I was like in P2, I remember. And I was talking to my mom. And I was like, I just want to help people. And then I always fancied the doctors with their white coats. And I was like, that's so cool that they walk in with their white coats and it's, they all look very like serious and, it's like they look smart. They probably know what they're doing. Hopefully they know what they're doing. So I always told my mom, like, I want to help people. But then as I got older and then I think it was on like end of primary school, I kept telling her the same thing. And then she was like, yeah, like you want to help people, like, you could be a social worker. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool, but I don't know what that means, but okay, let's go. So then I think it was, I went through high school, S1 to S6. Oh, I did my P1 till S6 here in Uganda. So I think it was after like S6 when we're taking those, you make your choices to go to university.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I'm really curious about, how the brain works and how, that affects people's behavior. Just curious. I'm like, I wonder what that's about. And when I was making choices, I was like, I think it was the industrial psychology. There was social work. So I filled them out and I'm like, yeah, the word social work came back to me then. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. But the thing I knew about social workers here, they're like, they go out in the field and they help people.
Right.
And, they're giving out food to people in like, shelters, like homeless shelters and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. But I want to add a little piece to that. Like I want to do something with like brain stuff and behavior stuff. So then when I went to the US for my undergrad, the school there was some classes that we had to do, like, everyone had to do it. There was like English, like one psychology class, like everyone in the school had to do it to get your degree. So I took one psychology class, the first one, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I love this. Like, how does this work? I want to know more. And then I added the aspect of like, I wanted to know more about like brain chemistry and, how that affects behavior. So then I went so my first major in school was psychology. And then I switched to neuroscience because I was like, there was like biology and chemistry. And I was like, this sounds really cool. Like, I'll be really smart. And then, I got in there and first semester and I was like, yeah, chemistry, biology, I don't know. And math, I was like, oh my God, I thought we were done with this. So like the first semester was terrible. It was terrible. And I got at the very end of it, I got my GPA and it was really, really low. So I was like, you know what? Maybe neuroscience is not for me. We want the cool stuff, but maybe our brain is not set up that way. So I switched back to psychology. And then when I did psychology, I did, the full load, all the classes and, child psychology and all that stuff, like everything that comes with it. So I was really excited about that. And then when I graduated, I was like, okay, I need to add something to that. Like I need to be able to practice and like really narrow down a field of work. Because with psychology, being an undergrad degree, like you learn about different pieces of it. You learn child psychology, you're doing industrial psychology, you're doing stuff to do with like social psychology. So I wanted to narrow down. And that's when I went into social work, like clinical social work. The university I went to, they have clinical social work as a master's degree, like a master's program. So I was like, okay, good. Like this will be very clinical. So it's mental health based. It does get, like they give you a bit of classes on a few of like going out into the field and helping people and, helping them get resources for stuff. But then I was just like, I just really want like mental health. Like how do I get in there and get all that knowledge? So that's how I got into, did my master's degree, clinical social work, got my license. And then I practiced for about 4 years with, all through like, not 4 years after master's. It was all through my undergrad. I got pieces of, I worked with children with autism. I worked with people that were coming out of incarceration, like prison, and trying to get housing and just get back in the community. And then I also worked with the last 2 years were mainly working with people with mental illnesses. So it's dialectical behavior therapy. So just 12 and above year olds that were struggling with, depression, anxiety, PTSD. I guess I should spell that out. Sometimes I forget that not everyone knows like the short form. So PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, like usually people that have trauma and then it comes back. People are like bipolar depression. So that's what I was really working with. I interned and then I did, full-on training. So that was my most recent training. So that is what I carried back to Uganda.
Right.
Yeah. That was a very long...
It's very important for us to know the history. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So you've mentioned you going for your classes or your studies in the US. Is there something that dawned on you while there and you're like, oh my God, Ugandans are very unaware of this?
Oh, yeah. Where, like mental health wise?
Exactly.
Okay. I saw that mostly when I was practicing. Because then you're taught things. Okay, one in school, yes. And then also when you're practicing, you get to see like real life stuff. You're like a therapist.
Right.
You get supervision. You get someone that, guides you on how to ask questions and what to do and, stuff like that. But mostly when we were in school, it's just that a psychology class was a requirement for everyone who was in, the university. So I was like, I wonder if there's, this kind of requirement in Uganda. Because I didn't go to university here, so I'm not sure what that setup is like. So I'm just like, I wonder if there's something like this. Just teaching you basic things of like, hey, this is what the signs for like different types of mental illnesses, but these are the signs. So just something to open your mind up. So that's one thing. That's actually the biggest thing. And then when I was practicing, I was just seeing people coming in and telling you all these things, like this is what I have going on. I was abused as a child, or I'm depressed, or I've lost my mom, I've lost my partner, or like just regular stresses of life that they're finding really hard to get through. So I was just thinking, like, I wonder how many people are going through this in Uganda, and people are just walking, just living every day as it goes. And it's just like, wow, I wonder how many people are living like this. I wonder. And the biggest thing for me was, I think it was like bipolar disorder, less diagnosis. And just seeing symptoms, people coming in, and then you have to diagnose them. And it's just like, wow, this could be, like, looking back, these were like, quote unquote, the mad people on the streets.
Right.
And I was just like, I wonder how many people are walking these streets with, undiagnosed and untreated mental illness. So it was just heavy then. And I think that's one of the biggest things that made me come back. I was just like, yes, I might not do much, but, if there's a person that can just come and like try to, create that awareness, help people understand that, mental illness is a thing. Like it happens. It's not just a white man disease.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
A lot of people are like, oh yeah, that's stuff for like bazungu.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's rich people problems. I'm like, no.
I was talking to someone before Corona.
Yeah.
And because I was chatting with him on WhatsApp, and I think it was past midnight. And he told me he was in the bar. And I was like, are you okay? He was like, I'm just stressed, but I'm okay. Then I don't remember what I told him, but it was related to mental health. And he was like, those are white people problems. Black people are strong. We are strong. And my question to him was, if that was the case, then why do we have Botabika in Uganda?
Good question, yeah.
And I don't remember what his response was, but this was someone who was sort of giving all his time to rebut the things that I was writing about mental health. And it went as far as the days before the total lockdown in 2020, when the school kids were pulled out of school. I made a post and I was like, this is a chance for your parents to actually be very attentive to the kids, because now they have been pulled from a normal system.
Right.
Now you have to really care for where they are mentally. And she was like, don't waste our time. He doesn't even have kids. Don't waste our time. We are supposed to be looking after these kids to get them what they need. Mental health can sort itself in the future.
Oh my goodness.
It's nothing. So when we were locked down, I was happy.
You were among the few that was just like, well, it's not a bad idea.
I was like, for me, it was more like, Kalionso, like, let me wait.
See, I told you.
So just a few weeks into the lockdown, I checked on him and he was like, I'm emotionally exhausted.
Really?
I'm so sorry, but I did a happy dance. I was like, oop, oop, oop.
Oh my goodness.
It was a thing of, now you know.
Right. Yeah.
That is what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I was like, now you know. Okay, of course I did help, and then he managed. He gave some rare answer that I can't really put here.
Oh.
Like, oh my God.
And I think it's the biggest thing is there's so much stigma. Like it's huge. So I think even when people are like, have the slightest idea that they might be struggling, they don't even want to accept that. They're like, oh, that's not like we, Black people or like Africans, we're strong.
We are.
It's like, yes, we might be strong. However, we're still human. So it's like, it's not about our skin color. It's not about like where we're living or like just that like, oh, yeah, people have it easy. They all have their own issues. Like we also have our own issues. However, at the end of it all, we're all human and we have emotions. So it's like once those emotions and just are out of place, that's going to affect us somehow. So it's like, and the stigma just doesn't help it, especially in Uganda. Like, when someone thinks of Botabika, they're thinking like, oh, those guys were probably like bewitched or like, I don't know, like they're just thinking of like, oh, that's like worst case scenario. Like me, I'm good. Stress, psh, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So it's like, no,
or
stress
things
like
get
you to Botabika.
Right.
They don't see that journey from just regular stress to Botabika. They're thinking someone just like jumps all the way and then they're like, they're taking their clothes off and then they're taking to Botabika. No. So I think that's the whole thing. Like people need to come to terms with the fact that this thing is happening. Like mental illness is a thing. It could be just something like very small that just like triggers everything and it's just all downhill from there.
Right.
So
because now you've talked about, you earlier on made sure that you explain what PTSD is. And here you are also talking about something small sparking all that is in history. Is there a way you can broaden that a bit for a listener to understand?
Let's see. Okay. I could go two ways with this. So the one is some people have predisposure to like mental illness. There's some of like something, so we call them SPMIs, so severe and persistent mental illness. So, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, those are some of the two big ones that could go through generations. So something like that, let's say if your parent, grandparent had it, there's a percentage that you might catch it. The word catch makes it sound like some type of like virus. But there's a certain percentage that you might have it. You might get it eventually. So what I mean by something small happening, it could be like an environmental factor. You could, lose your job or like have a huge loss. Could be like, you lose a loved one that was really, really, really like a huge part of your life. Or, I don't know, like anything like major that might happen. And then it triggers the already existing percentage of maybe, 10 whatever percentage that you might have. Right. And then you start getting the symptoms. Things like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, they really show up like early adulthood, like late teens into early 20s, like that. So somewhere in there, something might just like trigger it, like an environmental factor triggering, and then it's just everything comes out. So there's that piece of it. And then the other piece could be that maybe you don't have that, there's maybe not a history in the family. And then you just like, something big happens, environmental factor. Could be, retirement. Some people get like retired and then they don't feel like they're ready for retirement. They don't have everything set up for retirement. Huge loss, accident, major accident, abuse, childhood abuse. So things like that then trigger, they trigger like mental illness as an adult. So like if you're abused as a child, you could have some PTSD when you get older. The biggest number of people that have PTSD are people like soldiers that go to war.
Right.
And then they come back and they just, they can't fall asleep. They're just having, nightmares and, loud sounds really, trigger them. So that is not something that was in their DNA. It's just environmental factor. They had to go to war and then they came back and, they have all this trauma and then everything's just a mess after that.
Right.
So they are turning to alcohol, turning to, different things, drugs, whatever it is. So I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
So it's two things.
Yeah, because when you pointed out as loss being one of the things that can, bubble up in the future, you've taken me back to the day when I lost my grandmother, and when I got back home, because they didn't tell me when they picked me from school. So when I got into the house, this is when I noticed there's a whole line of people seated on the floor, headed to the bedroom. So I tried to wake her up. And she did not, because I think I wanted to just wake her up and tell her that I love her. Because I had learned to say these things. I wasn't saying these things growing up, but I had learned to be expressive of love. And I just wanted her to go with it, I think, because I really did.
Yeah.
And then she didn't. So the years that went on, I don't know for how long, I was always in panic mode. So when I would call my mom when I'm at school and she doesn't answer, she has died.
Right.
When I call my grandfather, because now I was on my toes. I'm in school meanwhile, but I'm like, oh my God.
You're just waiting for the next shoe to drop. Like, I'm just getting that call. Someone's going to just come take me out of school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I called, I would, in school you would go to the teachers. They give you the phones, you call. And then if I call and she doesn't, I'm a mess.
Exactly.
My mother has died. Why haven't they told me yet? And I'm sobbing. I'm crying. And then my grandfather as well. And now I've remembered for my mother, it's two-way. When I was younger, at about the age of 8, we were from my brother's school, VD, and a taxi knocked her down. It wasn't huge, but I saw her fall, and I know accidents kill. Yeah. So every time I had learned to tell the time. At 9, she's supposed to be back. So if it is 9, I think it was 8. If it reaches that time and she's not back, like,
this is it.
It finished her this time. So I used to cry until I think I got to the teen age. Now the teen age, my grandmother hits me and then it just went on for some time. I just learned how to calm down, I think, after finishing campus.
Right. See how long that took?
I've just learned to calm down because I was already in my childhood like, okay, if they have to die, let them wait for me to finish campus. And now I'm done with campus. They are still here. And I'm like, oh, they're here.
That's a very, very good example. I'm sorry you had to deal with all that. And I'm glad that you found some kind of peace after that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that happens to a lot of people. So, it has nothing to do with DNA. It has everything to do with environmental factors, what you experience. And now you're just like so anxious. You're always on edge, just like, okay, when is the next thing that they're telling me? Like, when is this going to happen again? I remember when I lost my grandma too, and I got a call from, actually it wasn't a call. It was, it was a call. I wasn't here. So I got a call from my brother and he's like, oh yeah, Jaja's passed. And I was like, wait, what? I was in shock. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And then eventually, I called my mom and I could just hear her crying on the other side of the phone. And I was like, what? What is this? So then after that, weeks after that, every time I saw a text or a call from my family, and I'm like, oh my God, what is it? What is it? And then I remember because, the time difference. So, she died Ugandan time during the day and it was night, so I was sleeping.
Oh dear.
So I wake up in the morning and the first thing I see is a text and then, my brother calls right away. So every time after that I would go to bed, in the middle of the night I would wake up and then look at my phone.
Whoa.
Like, oh, okay, whew, and then go back to bed. It took me a while. And then every time I would wake up in the morning, I'm like, I go through WhatsApp messages, I go through calls, I'm like, okay, whew, we're good today.
Yeah.
So it took me a while, and I'm just like, oh, I wonder how, if this is someone's daily life. Because, there's people with, severe anxiety, and they're just like, oh my goodness, like this is my life every single day. And I was just like, I would not wish this on anyone. It's terrible.
Right.
Like, it's just, living on that age, it's just, it's something else. So that's what I'm saying. Like, people need to understand, like, just life experiences can put you in a place where you're just like, I did not see myself here. How did I get here? Like, am I normal? And it's like, like, it happens. It happens to any of us.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a friend who doesn't like calls.
Oh, really?
Exactly. Because the last time she was okay with calls was before she was called to be told that the mother was dead. So she doesn't like calls. But I think she's sort of coming out of it. I don't know.
It takes a while. And but that's what PTSD looks like. If someone has gone through like a huge accident and they're just like, every time they go through that place, there's, replaying that memory is coming back. Right. And they just, they end up avoiding the place. You're just like, I don't want to go by that road. I'm not taking borders ever again in my life. Yeah. Or I'm not taking taxis ever again. And there's a ton of flashbacks and memories. And even like, you're hyper vigilant. You're just like on edge every single
it's
moment.
like you just come here to just flash, to switch on the floodgates on my life. Like,
no, but
we're exposing you. So you talked about how people don't go back to places. I lost a cousin in the bombings that happened in Kampala. Is it 2010?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it took me, every time university was in Mukono. And then if I have to come home, of course I have to pass Lugogo.
Right.
Every time I would pass there, I would shake.
Yep.
Like, oh my God.
Almost freeze, right?
Like, I hope it's not happening when I pass here. Or how? But she could have jumped over. Like, I would be asking myself questions all the time. And this very person who does not pick calls was the first person to take me to Lugogo.
Oh.
She took me there and we ate pork. Now, when you ask me about Lugogo, I know pork.
Yeah.
Like, I know, I'm no longer in a state of, okay, where was she seated?
Right.
To start calculating, but she could have, you bring up all these things.
Right, all the scenarios.
Yeah, but she could have, and I don't know. So what seating arrangement was happening? I would keep asking myself those questions. But I mean, we were there for the suicide prevention awareness day.
Right.
And
you could go there and with no problem.
And I'm not really thinking about it.
Yeah. So you kind of like created a new memory about the place. That's kind of like exposure therapy, what your friend did.
Yeah.
Like, usually it takes some time to do like exposure therapy.
Yeah.
But she kind of just like dropped
we
right
sat
in.
there and there was no chaos. There was nothing.
Yeah.
We were just eating, and I'm eating this pork for the first time. I'm like, I like this. So most times when people would talk about Lugogo, I remember, but then I was like, but there is pork.
Right. Yeah. And that's your way. That's really your way of healing from that anxiety and just that trauma of like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So that is your way of healing. And usually people are able to create new memories about a place and they move on from it. But then there's some people that cannot really move on from it.
Right.
So it's quite intense. It's quite intense. Yeah.
We are in this month of suicide prevention awareness, although the episode is going to come out much later. It's going to come after the month. But can you point at something that I have read in books, that is African literature, and also hard stories where people go as far as, friend, that family, they're just going to be dying by suicide. All of them are just going to be dying by suicide. Their ancestors are angry with them, so it runs in their blood and things like that. Can you help us understand where this could come from?
Ooh, that's big. That's big as well. And I think with these things, you have to put in a lot of like the culture aspect of it all.
Yeah.
I could just say, as someone that, like the books side of like the science side of it. And I could just be like, they could be saying that because, if mental illness runs in the family, it's possible, maybe it's passed down in generations. And then if one person died by suicide, it's likely that maybe, someone else, because if you have like a grandparent, die by suicide, and then a parent dies by suicide, you're probably looking at it like, well, I guess this is my fate.
Right.
This is how I, get the pain away from me. This is how I stop the pain and the struggling and the challenges. So that could be one. And then two could be like, the generational bit of it. So maybe they're saying that, hey, this is how this family, this is what goes on with them. This is how most of them end up.
Yeah.
So there's that piece. And then there's a piece of just like the culture aspect of it. It could be like, yes, ancestors, and maybe it's a curse or something. I don't want to take that aspect out of it. So, yeah, I guess there's really a lot to look at in that. And me being, like when we're going through the trainings and all that, that was a huge part of it. Like you have to put in the culture aspect of things.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Like, for real?
Yeah. Yeah, they were like, you need to, think about what does this culture, like, how does it look at suicide? How does it look at depression? What does it think about PTSD? So you had to think about, because different cultures are different. Being in the US and people are like, oh, I'm depressed. Okay, what's causing you the depression? I lost my job, or, I got in a huge accident and then I can't go to school, or like I switched schools and, or I had like huge breakup. So those are the things they have to consider. Everyone is different. However, like in a Ugandan setting, you have to think about, okay, I could have, a marriage going wrong.
Right.
And you can't really get out just because of the society aspect of it. You can't just get a divorce and things like that. So you have to think about, okay, if someone says that they're depressed and in a marriage, how does culture look at that? What is the thing around that? Are they saying like, hang in there?
Be strong.
Be strong. You're not the first person. You won't be the last. We've all been through that. So are they saying that? Or are they telling you like, if you're being abused, how about you get out of the situation? So there's a lot that you have to consider. That's why I don't want to take the culture aspect out of it all. And that's with all even diagnoses. When you're in a different setting, like if I was practicing in Kenya, or if I was practicing in the Middle East, I would have to find out, what does like the culture say about suicide? Culturally, how do people look at it? What do they think about depression and anxiety and stuff like that? So, yeah, I don't know if that helps to answer it all, but yeah, it's quite a lot too.
I wanted us to point out the bit of the possibility of the hereditary bit and how some people dismiss it as something that is a myth, and then also go into the possibility of suicide, suicide contagion. You had actually pointed it out that I'm making it sound like
it's contagious.
But I've learned that is what it's called when people get exposed to this, the news, the families, and all those kinds of things. How does someone get triggered in that manner?
Yeah,
I think it's important for us to also understand.
Yeah, thank you actually for bringing that up, because then that reminds me of what you asked me earlier, like the difference between what I saw in the US and here. In the US, like when they're talking about suicide or like, oh, this person died by suicide, they do not give any details whatsoever. Nothing.
By details, what do you mean?
How?
Oh.
Like the means, resources.
Is that so?
They do not give any details whatsoever. All they'll say, died by suicide. That's it. However, in Uganda,
we know these things.
Like they will tell you how this person went. And I'm just like, excuse me, trigger alert. Like they need to put these things on the news, social media, even when they're talking, like do not give details. You are giving someone ideas. I could just be there, like, having these thoughts already. I just don't know what to do. And then, lo and behold, I watch the news or I go through TikTok, whatever. And boom, there it is. That right there, I have an idea. I know exactly maybe where to go, how to get this, how to get that. And I'll, carry on with my plan.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, unintentionally, I feel like ideas are being thrown around really, really easily. Like, oh, this person did this and this and this and this, and then they, passed. Oh, then this other person did this and this. It could be like talk between people, friends, family. Oh, your auntie did this and this. Oh, your auntie, this is how, she took her life. This is, your cousin did this. Or, the neighbor did this. And it's just like, it could just be giving messages and ideas in someone's head. If you notice, I'm not saying what it is.
Yeah, I am.
Because, again, trigger alert, there's a lot of people that might be out there listening, and then it's like, oh, so this is another way I could do it.
I mean, I was looking. There was a point when I was looking and I just didn't find.
Exactly.
I didn't know.
So that's the thing. Like, it's. I guess then that answers your question as well. Like, a lot of these things are getting exposed to people unintentionally, and it's giving them ideas, and it sucks. And I think we as a community need to do better. We need to censor some things. News outlets, like if they're reporting on suicide, pictures, try to stay away from the pictures. Try to stay away from, hey, these are the means someone used. Even people talking about it. I know this might be a little harder because, we're not hanging around with everyone. So it could be like a talk within people. But if the media puts attention to this, I think the message will go around a lot easier. And then have them be intentional about this. Have the news anchor say, we're not giving details about this and this person or what this scenario because of this and this and this.
Right.
That would be very helpful. The other thing is, like social media again. People have a lot of ideas on social media and how it goes around. And, with TikTok and, social media sites, I feel like this generation has a lot more access to social media than we'd had even when we were growing up. So you don't know what kind of content.
Well, it was just starting.
Right, it was
from our end.
Right. But yes, it was starting, but we did not have that access. Like a 16-year-old, 12-year-old has a phone right now.
You're talking about 16? 7.
Exactly. Right. So I'm like, we didn't get phones until when? Like maybe secondary school.
Right.
So when they have phones, they have smartphones at that. We did not have smartphones.
Hey, my
it's
friend,
like-
that would be disrespect to your parents.
Exactly.
How dare you?
Even they didn't have smartphones. So that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like they can access like all social media sites really easily. So you don't know what content they're looking at, and you don't know, what they're thinking in their mind. People are going through different struggles. Even kids are going through different struggles. So them going through a social media site and they get this idea because it's so available to them, they could just, use that and jump with it. So that's the thing. Like even things about self-harm. I mean,
Right.
suicide is under self-harm, but even like bodily self-harm, not necessarily suicide. These things are out in the open. People are talking about them. People are like sharing them on social media amongst friends. So if there's a way that people like especially like, news outlets, I think that's the biggest thing, could really censor that would be very helpful, because then that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Even as therapists, like when I ask you, like if I'm having like a one-on-one session with you, I'll ask, okay, any like self-harm with you, I will ask you, hey, what are you doing? Exactly. Tell me. But then I will not go in to, because I do group therapy as well. But even with group therapy, we're asking people like how, okay, that kind of therapy I was doing, everyone would report on any their rate, they would rate their depression, they would rate the anxiety on a daily basis. Every time we had therapy, they would rate. And then if there was any suicidal ideation, you would give me a number. Like on a scale from 1 to 10, what's the number? How intense was it?
Yeah.
And then self-harm, I would also ask you, like, did you have any urges? Did you act on the urges? And then that's it. Between you and me, I know exactly what your self-harm looks like. I don't want the rest of the group to know what that looks like.
Right.
Because then they could be like, oh.
That is possible.
Exactly. So that way, we're not discussing it in a group. I can meet you privately and ask, let me see. What does that look like? Tell me about this. Do you need medical attention? So even as like groups, I make sure not to mention it when I'm talking, just because I'm like, I don't know who is listening. I don't know what kind of ideas they're looking for. So
Right.
if people are more like aware of that, that'll be very helpful. The other thing I feel like people are like getting exposed to, or how they're getting exposed to, suicidal ideation and stuff like that. The jokes. Like, okay, I think, I'm so sure you've seen probably this, when like, like a game, like, Arsenal and Manchester, like, they lose, whatever. And then someone is like, I'm just, when you support this team and then support this one, you just end up feeling like, boom. And then they hit the word.
Yeah.
You just feel like you need to just, And then it's like, I see what you're saying. I know it's a joke. However, this could be something, someone could be listening and be like, I guess this is my fate. This is what I need to do.
Yeah.
See how that could be easily like just give them an idea. One time I was on, I think it was WhatsApp, and then I can't remember what it was about, but it was, I think my friend posted it as a joke, but they posted like a rope hanging. And I was like, and they were laughing, the caption was like, ha ha ha, or something about like, as a solution to whatever had happened. I can't remember exactly what.
Right.
I right away texted them. I was like, please take this down. I know you're joking about this, but this is actually serious. Like you're giving someone an idea of what to do if they feel challenged by something.
Right.
So they took it down and they were like, sorry, I didn't mean that. I'm like, I know you didn't mean that, but however, like this is something you need to keep in mind. Someone could take that up really easily. So that's how I'm like, people throw these words out there, like in a light mood. Ha ha ha, let's just laugh.
I mean,
about
we
it.
are going as far as people saying things like, don't take what I say serious on social media.
Exactly.
No, that's not it. This is our main source of information for the most part.
Exactly. Yeah. And could be, yes, don't take it seriously. But then also there's some bullies out there. I'm pretty sure you've seen people that are like, if you don't like this, maybe go do this to yourself. And it's like, wow, someone could be at the edge at that point. And then what you said is what pushed them over the edge.
Right.
And then they go on and do it. So that's why I'm like, we need to really be kind and careful with what we say. You don't know what someone is going through. Your word might just be the last thing that breaks them.
Right.
So jokingly or unjokingly, like, I hope that answers the question though. Like,
it does.
Different ways people get exposed to, like
we're having the problem that I really have with social media is seeing people going as far as when we are tackling stigma, we're having people going as far as, can you imagine she said this or he said this? She must be having a mental health problem.
Yep.
And I'm like, are you serious? Like, I saw this with someone that I respect. And I was like, okay, so someone can actually be smart and non-smart at the same time.
Yep.
Like, I was in shock because I expected this guy to be so aware of what is going on. He is exposed. But because he is having a fight with someone, they had a social media war with someone, and then he says, you have a mental health problem. That is not an abuse. Like, find something else.
Cool, and I'm just like,
no, we actually, it's not a thing of sounding cool. It's a thing of, we are supposed to be ashamed.
Like, you just don't throw words around like that.
I was like, trust me, I was in shock. Even when I say it, I can't believe it because I held him right up here.
Right.
And then he just dropped.
And it's like, well, I guess you're not that. No. I totally understand what you're saying. Because like I think people sometimes throw words around like that. They want to sound like cool and knowledgeable. And it's like, sorry, but you sound really stupid like when you just say that. You sound really, really like, no. That is not the thing to say. I know you're coming from a place of like, I just want to throw this out there. Like, I know about mental illness. So like, no, clearly you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't throw that
exactly.
out there.
Something may happen and maybe someone does something and they're like, oh yeah, they said 14 million Uganda. And you're like, no, not like that.
I know, it's like... I know, and it's sad. That's why I'm just like, awareness is needed.
It's a lot.
Is needed because a lot of people don't know, and not just like they don't know. They just like, I could use this example. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, like this girl is just she's bipolar. I think she's bipolar," and I'm just like. Do you really know what that means? I'm like, so when did you diagnose this person with the bipolar disorder? I'm like, do you know the weight that, that diagnosis carries? Like it's not just like, oh, someone has like mood swings. It has a ton more like symptoms and all that stuff. It's just like, just because they were happy one minute and they were sad the next doesn't make them bipolar. And also, okay, I have another thing where people are just like, they kind of put the diagnosis and the individual as one. Example, by someone saying she's bipolar. It's like, that's all that she is.
Right.
And it's like, the individual has to be separated from the diagnosis. You can say she has, or she has a diagnosis of.
Right.
But that, just so you can separate the two, it's like just because she has that diagnosis doesn't mean that this is all she is. So every time I'm talking about, people or like and their diagnosis, I usually say, like when I said children with autism, meaning like, yes, they're children, they're individuals. Yes, they have this diagnosis as well. However, this doesn't mean that this is it. This is all they are. So hopefully people pick that as well. This is a person with schizophrenia. Instead of like, oh, she's schizophrenic. Like,
This words exist, so.
So it's like, it just, one of those things that just like, you feel like your heart is heavy, like you want to say something, but you're just like, Lorna, hold it together. So I don't know. And that adds to the stigma as well. Because then you're putting this person and their diagnosis in the same bubble. Like they can still be Lorna and, be a lawyer or be whatever. I just have that diagnosis with me. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
That doesn't just mean that this is, the two are one.
When it comes to the people that are caring for those with mental health disorders. Can you highlight something that is very important for them to be aware of?
I think the biggest thing is to remember that they're also human. That's a big thing. To remember that they also have lives outside of this. I know there's a lot of guilt, especially with people that are taking care of, loved ones that have different mental illnesses, like parents, especially when they have their child. And you want to be selfless. You want to give it your all. You want to give everything and anything you can to this person. That's great. However, you're also human. You have emotions. You get tired physically and mentally. So that's another thing they need to remember. So you need to take care of yourself. That's the biggest thing. Remembering to take care of yourself. There's something called burnout. There's a ton of burnout that can be experienced by people taking care of, people with mental illnesses. Even just caretakers, even teachers get burned out. It doesn't have to be mental illness or whatever. Different people get burnt out.
Right.
You could be a lawyer and just I'm burnt out.
Even for the work.
Tired. Yes.
Yeah.
By work. So it's the same thing because we're human. Our bodies get tired. So the biggest thing I would tell people is just pay attention to your body. Listen to your body. If you feel like you're feeling tired, you go to sleep, but you can't really sleep and you wake up even tired, you're just you feel ugh, I had 8 hours of sleep, but I feel like it was nothing. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling resentful. I don't even want to see this person. Every morning you're just ugh, I have to wake up and do this again. All those are signs. Those are signs of burnout. And, when those kick in, that's when you're just maybe I need a break. And that is a break doesn't mean okay, I'm going on a whole vacation. You're sure, it could be that. If you need a vacation from work, sure. Yeah, if you're able to, do it. However, with caretakers, with people with mental illness, maybe you can't afford to take a break because maybe this is your child and you're the only caregiver that's around.
Right.
Taking a break could look let me just go exercise, have 30 minutes to myself. Let me go, get my hair done, get a massage, get my nails done, go out with some friends just for an hour or two. Let me go for a comedy night.
Right.
Let me go just sit somewhere and just take in nature. Let me go listen. Let me take 30 minutes just to listen to music. Take a walk. It could be as simple as that. Take a break. Take a breather. Go talk to someone. If you're able to, go get therapy yourself.
Right.
Because it's huge.
Right.
Yes.
That is very important. Go for therapy yourself.
And I know some people might not be oh yeah, therapy. I'm not really mentally ill. Why would I need therapy? I'm you're taking care of someone.
Who is?
Yes. So you need to get the skills to take care of yourself and take care of this person. So you could get that through therapy. Because I always tell people, you can't give what you don't have.
There.
So it's if you're drained mentally and emotionally and physically drained, there's really nothing much you're going to do for this person you're not going to be present.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. So you need to take care of yourself, listen to your body, and do something, the necessary, whatever you have to do. And I know there's a ton of guilt. I like to say that because you feel guilty.
Yeah.
It's just I'm leaving them. I'm abandoning them.
I'm a terrible person.
I'm a terrible person. This is my sister. This is my mom. This is my child. I should be doing this. I like to emphasize the word should because there's a ton of pressure with that word. So it's the pressure itself makes you feel guilty if you're not doing anything like that. So I want to encourage people yes, the guilt is going to be there. However, try to remind yourself that, hey, I'm human as well.
Right.
I get tired. So it's okay for me to take a break. It's okay to say no, especially if there's other people that are able to help you out. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to say, today I'm not going to come to the hospital to see you. It's okay. So I can take care of myself too. I'm getting really drained by coming to the hospital. Like it's okay for you to take that break if you have other people to, to help you with what you're doing.
Right.
And that's another thing. People need to ask for help. And it could be just like, hey, do you want to watch my person for 2 hours? I'll be back. Like, hey, I'm really struggling and I need help.
When you, I feel like when you say that, it's not news that we need to ask for help, but then looking at the primary caregivers being women for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
We cannot ask for help.
Yeah.
There is this burden of being strong. You are supposed to be strong. You have to be present. You have to be a robot. Exactly. You are supposed to be devoid of emotions. So when you say that, I was like,
hit a nerve. No, that's so true. What you said is really true. We as women are looked at as we're supposed to be like the strong people in the home.
Right.
Society looks at us like, you've probably heard of the saying, oh, gumango mukazi. And it's like, yes. But we're also human. We have limits. Oguma pakadi. Like it's just like, yes, I can be strong. I can appear strong. However, I could be dying inside. And that what's inside is going to come out one way or another. It's going to come out with anger, with resentment.
Right.
So it's okay. Like you will feel the weight lifted off your shoulders when you're just like, hey, help me out. I'm really struggling. I can't do this alone. It's okay. But I know, it's also hard. It's easy to say. It's so easy to say like, hey, ask for help. But it's not as easy to do. Sometimes we also find ourselves in situations where you're just like taking everything and anything on your plate. And it's just, until you get there and your plate is overflowing and just like, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah.
I should have asked for help 2 years ago. So that's the thing. Like, please, people need to really take care of yourself. And, a lot of caretakers forget themselves. They want to pour in everything that they have and you forget yourself.
Right.
You're losing weight. You're not even eating well. You're not sleeping well. You can't balance work and school and all that you're doing. Your relationships are getting affected. Your work is getting affected because you're giving your all to one thing, which is, yes, great that you want to take care of this person. However, you also have another life that, that needs you present physically and mentally. So you need, people need to remember to, I always say self-care. Self-care. Yep. And you don't need to, that's the thing, with self-care, especially with work things, people feel they need to explain themselves. Yeah. Sometimes you don't need to explain yourself. Just take the vacation. I'm like, yeah,
you can't disappear.
My vacation days. Yeah, it's like, I need to be present.
Let's talk about where to find the help. That is professional help for the most part. Recently, I don't know how long Kampala Counseling Services has been existent because I just saw you recently and then I'm seeing a website launch and I'm like, oh yes! Oh yes! Because I don't know if there is anything existent like that. I'm seeing this for the first time. I'm like, oh yes. We're having this because we are really digital. So having that platform, it makes it, okay, let me not talk about it like it's mine. Talk about it yourself.
Yeah, Kampala Counseling Services is very new. I just moved back home last December.
You did?
Yeah. December 2021.
Too fresh.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So I just moved back home and, got married and tried to settle in Uganda.
Oh, this is happening in 8 months.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, my God.
I came home mid-December and by the 29th, I was married. So there was 3 events in the space of 2 weeks. So I was not thinking anything work-related the whole of December and January because then I had to register the company and just rest. Self-care. I had to rest.
I had to ask you, are you okay?
Right? I was like, I'm not doing anything work-related because I have to rest. And, it was too many things going on at the same time. You're meeting new people and all that. Anyway, that's besides the point. But it did not start registration and all that process until like February. So that's when I started like registration, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then officially like launched in I think it was about March. So it's very new. So that's why I was like working on the website. My husband actually did the website, the ICT web. So he worked on the website, and that's what launched, last week? Last week.
Was it last week?
I think it was last week.
Maybe 2 weeks ago.
Sometime.
Last week is like the past 6 days, so it's the other week.
No. Oh, yeah. It was, the other week.
Yeah.
So it just launched. So this is very fresh. Kampala Counseling Services is very fresh, very new. And I have a website because I think maybe it's just something I picked also from just going up, like being abroad. And it's like I need to be able to let people know about what I'm doing, what's available, even without speaking to them directly. Because sometimes you don't get the chance to. So, but if someone looks you up and they're like, oh, this is available, this is what they do, cool, let me give them a call. So just accessibility. Like you said, we're going very digital right now.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to keep up with the times. So that's why I have a website, I have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then the phone, WhatsApp, because I realized like, a lot of people are on WhatsApp. So again, going with the flow and what's culture, what are their means of communication. So you need to be up with the times. So so for people that are looking for me, WhatsApp, the number, it's 0741 056 164. Again, 0741.
Can you go slowly?
Slower?
Because I'm also trying to process it.
Okay. So 0741
Right.
056
056
164.
164. I'm actually saving it so I can forward it to someone.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so that's my WhatsApp number, direct calls, whatever. And then the website, that's where you'll find a ton of information, even how to reach me. You can set up an appointment and stuff like that. Website is KCS. So like K for Kimberly, C for Charles, S.
Can you actually say the real words?
Oh, okay.
K for Kampala.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
C for
K
counseling.
For Kampala, C for counseling, S for services. UG.com. So kcsug.com. So there's a ton of information there. And then I'm also on Instagram. So all my social media handles are on the website as well. So people can reach out that way. So, and then I have offices in Nakawa. So I see my clients there. I'm partnering with another therapy already, like a set clinic, Healing Talk. So they see their clients there, and I came in also just so I can see my clients there. Just being very new again, in that people don't know much about you. It's kind of not as it's not very smart to set up a whole space and start paying rent and you have barely a client. So
that's right.
I'm working with using their space for now. Great people. So that's I'm in Nakawa. That's where I see my clients. If people need anything, they need to reach out to me. The website is a great resource for them.
www.kcsug.com. How do you take care of your mental health?
I love to sleep. I will sleep and I will not let anything get in the way of my sleep. Just to be honest. I love my sleep. I know when I'm tired. I know when I think maybe it could be the training that we went through.
Awareness.
Yeah. So just being aware of your body and just seeing how you're reacting to things. When I was working with kids, it takes a toll on you.
It does.
Sometimes you feel like yelling at someone. You're just like, you know what? Hold it together. Maybe this is a sign that you need to take a break. So every time my supervisor saw that and they could see it in the room and they'll be like, take a 5-minute break in the bathroom. So that teaches you to be aware of your own emotions. So every time I feel like, okay, I'm getting irritated really quickly. This person is really getting on my nerves.
Right.
I take a break. If during the week I'm out and about, Monday to Friday, Saturday is off. I am not answering any phone calls. I am,
And here I am.
No. That's different though. So like, it depends. My week has been really like chill. So that's what like if Saturday comes up and I'm just like, And sometimes the week is busy, but I still have some energy to go on Saturday. I'm just like, yeah, sure, I'll come through and do this.
Yeah.
But also it has something to do with boundaries as well. Even with my work phone, I only check it from 9 to 5 every day. Even when people text on WhatsApp, it sends them like a direct message. Like if this is texted, if this message is sent after 5 p.m., it will be returned, the next business day.
Right.
So that way I have to make sure like if it's 5 or, okay, sometimes I give like, okay, 6 sometimes. But after that, like it's off. I will return your call the next day. I will return your message the next day. And it's kind of like something I have to force myself to do. Because when you give in the first time and respond to messages, you're going to be responding to messages at 1 a.m. And what time are you going to bed? Probably 2 or 3. What time do you have to be up? 6. And, it's all goes downhill from there. So it has a lot to do with boundaries. So that's, again, self-care. It's just like, I'm answering your phone tomorrow. I will answer your message tomorrow. So that way I'm able to like sleep, be with family. Or if it's the weekend, take some time to rest or like have your social life. That way you're taking care of yourself. So yeah, that's how if that answers it, that's how I really take care of my mental health. And therapists also have therapists. So, so that is how, because you spend your whole week listening to everyone else's challenges. Sometimes you take a lot of it home. So having someone to talk to and, just, I don't want to call it vent, but just to share, to take the load off, it's very helpful. Yeah. And I guess another thing just, that came to me as a therapist is just remembering to keep work at work. So
separating yourself. Like you have to split yourself. And when we were doing training, or when I was working actually, I call it training and working because I was doing both at the same time. Our boss was like, because we had work computers and personal computers, he was like, I need you all to leave your work computers at home, at work. So that way, you're not, 11 p.m., you're not sending an email. You're not checking in on your client's reports, at 11 p.m. So, and then they were very strict about that. Of course, with lockdown, we were working from home at some point. But they were just like, I'm not checking your email at, past 6 p.m. I'm getting to it in the next business day. Right.
So that also showed me like, hey, you need to leave work at work. When you get home, take off the work, leave it at the door, get in. The next day you can pick it up, head to work. So that helps you like physically separate and also emotionally separate work and home life.
That word always plays me, compartmentalization.
Compartmentalize. Yeah,
you say it so easily. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people like carry things like that, especially with our field of work. You end up like calling this client on the weekend and they're inviting you to things. Like come, it's my sister's birthday. And it's like that. Yes, you're going to your client's sister's birthday, but it's like that's a lot of boundaries crossed.
Right.
So it's just, no.
We don't have that relationship.
No, you don't have to. So, no one is getting a prize for like I don't know, whatever, like the most hardworking person. Like it's okay, just take a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that's helpful for other people that are listening.
What words would you want the listener to walk away with?
This is like my favorite line. It's okay to not be okay. Pay attention to your body. And also, self-care. And the thing is, there's help. There's help. So please reach out. And I know a lot of people are suffering in silence because of the stigma. And maybe someone's like, I'm struggling. I just don't have the money to do it. There's also free services out there. Like, reach out. Like, we're living in a generation that's very different from our parents' generation. Yeah. So what they held together, like what they kept in silence, we don't have to. Like, we have different challenges that we're going through. So if you're struggling, please just reach out. There's no prize for who is going to struggle the most. Like, I know we laugh about this, but like, I know there's so many people that are struggling in silence.
Right.
Like, please just reach out to people. Like, it's okay. You know, we go through different challenges and we walk through them differently. So just because one person, you know, overcame depression in 6 months, yours could be like a year or 2, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So please reach out.
Right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This was very exciting.
My takeaway from this episode is listen to your body. And this is going on 2 ways, for the person struggling mentally and for the caregivers. Lorna, thank you so much for sharing this gem. And I hope that you, the listener, has walked away with these gems that she has come with. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Hashtag with Nabuguzi Chwanuka. If you loved what you heard, make sure you subscribe to Hashtag with Nabuguzi Chwanuka on your podcast platform of choice and share it with your friends, loved ones, and anyone that you believe is affected by the millennial world around us. Also, feel free to share your insights about what connected with you in this episode. You can share with us with the hashtag HDNK Instation or tag us in your posts. On Facebook and Instagram, we are at Hashtag with Nabuguzi Chwanuka, and on Twitter, our handle is at HTNK Podcast. For any suggestions, feedback, or I don't know what you want to communicate with me, reach me on nabuguzi@nabuguzichwanuka.com. That's an email. Or check out nabuguzichwanuka.com for more insightful conversations that you may not have heard in this episode or the whole podcast. Catch you next week, and until then, listen to your body. Try to practice, listen to it, and you will never be the same.